I'm good. How are you?
We're good. What's up, Michelle?
I have I usually call in and I'm pretty positive about the Bears lately, but I wanted to change my tone on this and be a little pessimistic. I had a question for Pat. I've been thinking about this, and I can't help but feel like maybe the Bears just got lucky. Like they found Ben Johnson and they found their quarterback, and they have it all clicking despite the ownership. And I'm wondering if this can give some hope to Jets fans or Dolphins fans or Giants fans that even if their ownership never steps out of the way, will they eventually figure it out? So I'm wondering, from your perspective with the Bears here, do you think the mindset of ownership has actually changed for the better, or did they just get lucky here?
Well, you keep trying, right? And I think the first thing we'll say about the Bears is they kept trying. And they weren't lucky in the sense of discovering the quarterback. The quarterback was almost unanimous in people's minds about the talent was there and all that business. The head coach proved himself in your division, which I think is an important piece. He didn't really just have to hope we interview the right guy. So I give him a lot of credit for hiring a coach, and I think the quarterback was your choice. Remember, when you took him, you can recall that everyone thought you took the wrong guy. Mm-hmm. Not everyone, but a lot of people did. And the coach came in and cleaned all that up. I'll never forget the two things the coach said. We don't know how to practice, and we don't compete on Sundays. And I brought that up to your coach. I said, you took a huge personal risk of losing this team by being that brutally honest. And it worked. They wanted to be better. He got rid of guys that didn't want to be better. So I give you full credit. I think your other point, though, is interesting about who could follow suit and be the next team to have that kind of turnaround. Some would say the Tennessee Titans. They're way down the bottom. I don't know that I prefer Cam Ward yet, but I find them interesting. That's a division that somehow you could jump up to the top. I don't think it'll happen this year, but I like them. Well, the Jet fans have been scarred a lot, and they went through what you went through. A lot of coaches, a lot of issues at quarterback that weren't resolved and weren't very good. So I don't know. I just stick with you guys and give you some credit here. But I'd love to have you, and I know a team you love attacking, not viciously, but consistently, are the Vikings. We've been talking about them. What if Kyler Murray pulls off the hat trick and gets something done here? What do you think of that?
Michelle is gone. But yeah, I mean, that is, again, we spent a lot of time in the NFC North today because a lot of these teams' storylines and what they've done the last couple of years, it warrants a lot of this conversation. It's, year two, Pat, is always interesting to me, going back to the Bears for a second. Ben Johnson walks in, changes a lot of things, like you said, and they end up having a fantastic year. But if you want to just kind of look and nitpick and find other stuff, Caleb Williams had a tremendous year, showed tremendous, the clutch gene, I guess, to use a cliche. But I heard one of the players who was on the channel recently on that Players Week said it, it's great that they played and they won games like that, but you can't do it all the time. And you can't rely on it or bank on it. You never plan for it, but it can't always be like that. So 1 year is 1 year, and you can accidentally find yourself in a good spot and just have things always kind of fall in your favor. But they got to do it again in somewhat of a different way in Chicago this year to prove for real that they're here to stay.
No doubt about it. We have a long history in this league of teams that flash and do something like they did and then settle back into the pack, because I must have said this 1,000 times in 25 years here. I don't think we give enough credit to the opposing defenses. We like what we saw from the Bears, and there are those who will assume we'll start from where we left off. You have to go back to the beginning every year. Belichick was great at doing that and screaming at his players on the first day of camp. We've done nothing here. But the defenses that had to confront them last year have spent literally, for some of
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Rise Grind Morning Show. Hopefully, you all having a wonderful Thursday morning this morning, right? It's Thursday today. Had to start with the conversation on XM radio this morning, talking about the Bears. So that lady that calls in, huge Bears fan, I can't remember her name, but she calls in like every week. Religiously, she calls in every week, has a good rapport with the guys on XM radio. And so she just said exactly what came out of my mouth all last year, right? All off season. And you can kind of sum it up like this. It was one season of luck. She kind of felt the same way. Was it really Caleb Williams? Was it really Ben Johnson? Or was it that every other team that they played had a lot of issues and a fourth place schedule that didn't bear a lot of fruit? Right? Didn't bear a lot of fruit. So they had, everything and anything that you could think of going for them. And so now when push comes to shove here in 2026, they're going up against a first place schedule. And they're also going up against, teams like the Lions that are, still undefeated really against the Bears, in my opinion, or at least against Ben Johnson, during his reign. And they're going to be going up against much better teams, much better defenses. And at the end of the day, you have a quarterback that can't complete more than 58% of his passes. You have a quarterback that runs around and makes these Hail Mary throws all the time. It gets lucky, right? Gets lucky. Too many games decided by too few points. And those, to me, are the defining marks of a team that they got lucky, or at least part of it. The defense for the Bears, look, I can't discredit what the defense did. Dennis Allen defense is a great defense. And in picking off the balls many times they did, again, I'm going to go back. I'm not saying they're lucky, but I'm going to say that it won't be repeated. It won't be repeated. It's the same thing that I said about Kirby Joseph. That was a great season, dude. Trade him, because it ain't going to happen again. The ether is super high. The value is super high. Make your football team better. Unfortunately, it blew up in the Lions' face, but it's the same thing for the Bears. It's unrealistic to think that they're going to go back in 2026 and pick off the ball that many times and bail out Caleb Williams. Let's be real here. Had they not had that many interceptions and turnovers, how many games don't they win? I think that's the question that needs to be asked. It wasn't about Caleb Williams winning games. It wasn't about Caleb Williams' arm. It wasn't about Ben Johnson, the offensive guru, right? None of that mattered. Absolutely none of that mattered. What mattered was the defense gave the ball back to the Bears. Offense. And then Caleb fumbled through, completing a few passes, made a couple of things work, right? But now your room is depleted all over the place. Your offensive line has changed again. You got your third center in 3 years. Yeah, you should be better with Ben Johnson as a head coach, second year in a row. But I'm going to go back to something else I've always said. Whenever you have a new coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, any one of the three, right? A new offensive coordinator, that offense is going to be untested. It's going to be a lot better than what it was the season before, because the defenses they're going up against don't really have a clue as to what they're doing yet. Now, when they put some film on, or when they put some games together and there's some film ready, now defenses later on in the season are going to be able to clamp down a little bit and kind of figure out what you're doing. So last year was a culmination of a lot of firsts, right? A lot of new things. And for that reason, and going up against the last place schedule and then having a defense that was able to give Caleb Williams 22 extra opportunities, right? That's why the Bears, eked out a few extra wins. And mind you, two extra wins over the entire division. 2. Now, if you don't get 10 of those interceptions, do you lose 2 of those games? Does that mean the Lions are back into the playoffs potentially? Could have been. So I wanted to start with that and then just get the conversation starting already this morning on how you feel. I guess the question would be, how do you feel about the NFC North in 2026? Look, it's the Lions division. It's not the Bears division to lose. I'm sorry, it's not. That Bears team has so much more to prove than what the Lions have to prove. The Lions have been there, done that over the last 5 seasons. I know that sounds kind of odd, but let's be realistic. The Lions have now been under control of Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes since 2021. They're entering their 6th season. We are no longer figuring it out, right? We are no longer just wondering what we're going to have this season. No, the Lions since 2023 have proven that they can win the tough games. They've proven that you can have an epic collapse in a game and still pull it out. They've proven that you can lose 21 players to injured reserve and then back it up the next season and do it again and still win a lot of football games. Still get the 1 seed. Still make it to the playoffs. Won 15 games. Now, you do that in a season where you're fairly healthy, this team goes to the Super Bowl. That's what it's all about. This team, the Detroit Lions, it's not about coaching. It's not about the players that we have. I know that seems to be a lot of the argument, right? Is everyone is so hyper-focused on Dan Campbell's 4th down call, right? Or Calvin Shepard's, or back then Aaron Glenn's, blitzing too much. The difference was and always will be the health of your team heading into December. If you are healthy, I don't care what team it is in the NFL. If that team is 100% healthy from the way that they started and wanted to start the season, I don't care if it's the Saints. I don't care if it's the Cardinals. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's the Dolphins. Watch out for the Dolphins. But that team has a great shot at going deep into the playoffs. Now, you're going to end up going up against the other teams that have a lot more, right? And obviously, things, the water finds its level eventually. But any team in the NFL, any one of them is healthy, and they have a great shot. The Lions just have a better shot. Why? Well, significant developments have changed over the last 24 hours. The Lions have major development with health, and that's exactly where the season's going to kick off this year. Are they healthier? And if they are healthier, how much better can they be in 2026? Again, the Lions are no longer figuring it out. We know who they are. They know who they are. They just need the guys to stay on the field. All right, good morning. Welcome into the Rise of Grind Morning Show. My name is Will Rock. I'm the host of Rock Down Detroit Lions, Detroit Football Journal, founder of such, and do things all NFL football here, man. NFL draft analyst, independent NFL scout, do it all for the love of the game. Started this, a few years ago just to have some fun, have the conversation, and then turn it into something more meaningful and different. I was sick of the narrative. All the toxic energy, all the hate for the Detroit Lions. I mean, that's all I ever read, right? I mean, the Carlos Menares, not to call anybody out independently, but that was someone that always just kind of pissed in my Cheerios every day when you get up to read an article about the Lions. And there was just so much hate out there, just so much negativity. Deserved as such it may have been at times. It no longer is deserved. And so that's why this started. I wanted to bring more truth, honesty, and transparency to the landscape of Detroit football, man. I mean, it's a football town, and it is one of the most dedicated football towns in the NFL, the best fans in the world, the best community right here on Rock Down Detroit Lions, all because of you. You guys make up the community. I wouldn't be here without you, so do me a huge favor and make sure you guys subscribe today. If you haven't subscribed, check and make sure that you're subscribed if you think you're subscribed. Because people get timed out, they get unsubscribed unknowingly. It happens all the time. It happens to me all the time with channels that I regularly watch or listen to, and I have to go back in and resubscribe. I don't know why. I have no idea why it happens, but it happens. Anyway, did this also because, eventually I wanted to do something great, right? I wanted to leave a legacy behind. And the legacy was helping out other cancer survivors, just like myself, just like Megan, and just like so many of you and so many people that and your family members. Rock On Cancer Foundation was started, a personal charitable cause, that is near and dear to my heart in trying to help, others as much as we can. Obviously, we're still in the infancy stages. Trying to grow it and get it to a point of becoming a nonprofit should happen very soon. The expectation is that I'm thinking by the end of this year, we'll probably get it done. And then that gives us a better 2027 to really be able to do some great things and target much bigger donations. This year, we will be doing a lot more giveaways like we do every year. If you would be so kind to donate to Rock Down Cancer Foundation, everyone's included in the giveaways. I'm not saying that you'll get more chances by donating, but that's the focus, right? I buy thousands of dollars of equipment, memorabilia, signed stuff to give away in the hopes and the effort that you will reciprocate and help us get to our goals. Let's talk some Detroit football. We're going to do that right when we get back. I'm going to take a brief break, and then we're going to get rolling. I know it's only been 10 minutes, but we're going to get rolling. I got to reset real quick. And let's get into it, man. Major developments today for the Detroit Lions.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again.
All right. Good morning to everybody. Let me just welcome everyone in real quick here. We got Mr. Thomas, Sunburst. Sunburst, you're not a member yet. Hey, if you guys would like to become a member, I posted it in the description below. I am changing memberships. I'll probably have it done this weekend. No guarantees. I got a lot going on this weekend. And then Megan is going on vacation to Florida. So it's just going to be me and the dog. And me and the dog running the home. So I got a lot to get done. And so anyway, good morning, Gina. Nightbot, always doing his thing. John Desage, good morning. Raw B, of course, good morning. Jay Cruzen. Trace kicked us off this morning. Attila. Joe Schmo. Adam Gakowski, good morning. Tone, that's a new name. Good morning, Tone. Aaron Green, what's happening? J Mommy, good morning. Glad to see you could make it in this morning. Try to do some night shows for you the other night. I'll do some more. I'm going to try to get in 2 a week right now, at least. And then members only. We're going to kick one of those off probably this weekend. Arch Nemesis, Motown Mitch, good morning. Lady Lion. Anybody else that I missed, man, it's not by purpose. I can only scroll back so far. All right, so let's kick off what today's all about. Now, I do want to continue on with the previews. I'm not going to be able to do it today. Yesterday, what a rough day yesterday was, man. I've been working so hard on the back end here and trying to get a lot of things ready for the season. And I woke up, went to my computer, turned everything on, and stuff just disappears. I don't know how. I have no idea how. I have all of this stuff set up. I use AI to help me with clawing some information, right? To help me gain, information that I need to continue creating good topics, right? And finding the information that helps me, to become more intelligent. As opposed to reading a whole sheet, right, of stats, you can have AI condense it for you, right, and kind of give you just what you need. So I have written so many prompts, and I've spent probably hundreds of hours over the last 6 months getting prepared to do this year, and it's gone. Just completely disappeared. My projects disappeared. All my task prompts disappeared. All my project settings disappeared. Thankfully, I backed it up, but now I have to go in and rewrite. Look, I'm not an engineer of PCs or software, so I don't know everything, but something's up, man. At the same time, I also heard that AI hacked like some major company this week or something like that. I don't know what company. Just heard the rumor that Sam Altman doesn't know how, and that's pretty scary stuff, right? I mean, AI is starting to be used everywhere in the NFL. With everything that they're doing, AI is used on every article source that you read from. Every company that is a media company, they're all using AI. They're all using AI to create articles or to claw articles or to create websites. It's everywhere. So I'm not the only one. Every single one out there is doing it. And you can tell. Like, you can tell some articles are completely AI written. I use AI to help me, and help be an assistant, if you will, because it's not free, but it's cheap. $100 a month is cheap compared to an employee. All right, so let's. Yeah, it is freaky, man. It's freaky when you put all of that hard work into these things, and it just disappears. But thankfully, I'm smart enough to understand that you got to back stuff up. Got to back stuff up, man. Got to back. Tone says, not an engineer. Look at you with all your tech, dude. You won't. It's crazy, Tone. I'm glad you just said that because it's funny. It's every once in a while I'll go back. I don't know which one is on YouTube. I don't know how far back it goes because I know some stuff I've kind of taken off or private, put to unlisted. But I've gone back to look at like some of my very first podcasts, and that was just like a couple of days after I had cancer removal surgery. So I couldn't talk. It was really tough. I mean, I was chewing on glass, and just the setup. I mean, the little cheap $99 microphone, which for some people that's a more expensive, starter microphone, but it happened to come with, something. But anyway, just going back to see where I started, and now I have 4 screens and all these lights and Rodecaster Pros and Stream Decks and all these AI programs. I mean, just all these subscriptions. It's nuts, And I never knew anything about podcasting. I never knew anything about YouTube. Nothing, not a damn thing. But I started doing it, started streaming to all those different, platforms, and was never on YouTube solely. And then finally made the switch. And then when I did make the switch, that's kind of when I met Derek, right, from Syndicate. And he helped me a little bit, in the very beginning too, with understanding like just stupid stuff, like background stuff on YouTube, like how to update this or, how to put tags in, just stupid stuff that would have taken me forever to just kind of read through and fumble through. So he was willing to help me with a few things back then. Kind of funny how relationships fade, but, I try not to be negative. I try to give people credit where credit's due, but not everyone else does that, as you know. All right, now we're going to reset. And now we're going to hit it.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again.
All right. Today, we're going to talk about the most important major development that happened yesterday. So since I wasn't able to do a whole lot yesterday, I didn't get a chance to really talk about this. But it is an important development nonetheless because of how it impacts the Lions offense. And matter of fact, when I did the preview the other day of receivers, tight ends, and also threw in Jahmyr Gibbs, I think the most important thing out of the receiver room is Sam Laporta. Even though he's a tight end, the dude's a receiver, right? He's just a big receiver, and he plays a different position, but he's a receiver. And he's a very important piece to this offense. So that's what I want to start with, is talking about Sam Laporta in the latest development, which is a huge development. Now, where it goes, where it ends up, we'll find out. But I guess the first thing that I want to say is like, are we finally ready to admit that the Detroit Lions offense is completely paralyzed without a dominant tight end? Yesterday, the biggest medical cloud that has been hanging over Allen Park and the Lions organization was just lifted, right? When Sam Laporta was fully cleared for training camp, after last year's herniated disc, which we're finally, realizing or finding out that it was a full herniated disc, that removed the safety valve for Jared Goff. An entire passing attack was suffocated, right? Bracket coverage was all over the field on Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams. And now you have this all-pro, right? All-pro as a rookie back in the trenches for the Lions in 2026. Again, I'm going to throw caution to the wind because we don't know if it's going to last. A re-injury or an occurrence of a re-injury, it's possible. Anytime you have a herniated disc, and I don't know what type of surgery he had. I would love for somebody to find out because that would help us to understand, like, what is he facing? Fusion surgery that I've had in my neck and my back, not easy to deal with. I don't care how good your surgeon is. My surgeon was a Marine ortho surgeon. Like, he was doing surgeries in the field, on the battlefield, saving people's lives. That's who I had to do my surgery, and my surgery still didn't work out. But anyway, Sam Laporte is back, right? So it's now it's just time to unleash the rest of that playbook, right? The rest of that playbook that we didn't see last year. And now it just so happens that we have Drew Petzing now as the offensive coordinator that is going to mirror match a lot of what Ben Johnson does, and I think to a better degree. So let's kind of break down exactly why this clearance of Sam Laporta is so important and why it changes the entire landscape of the NFC North, not just for the Lions season, but the NFC North also hinged on Sam Laporta, in my opinion. When you watch tape, right, from the second half of 2025, and I've watched plenty this offseason, the scheme decay, in my opinion, was probably the most glaring part of the second half of the year. Not only was it more vanilla, but what they were not able to do with Sam Laporta off the field, I mean, again, I hate to use the word again as repetition, glaring. They were not able to do or dictate what they normally did on third down, right? Opposing linebackers were able to stop respecting the seam route, right, which is Sam Laporta's bread and butter. Jared Goff's bread and butter with Sam, I should say, is that seam route. It allowed defensive coordinators to roll their safeties directly over the top of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. And when you think about it like this, when Sam Laporta is on the field, he forces those defenses to make an impossible choice, right? Are you going to play base personnel and let him outrun a linebacker? Or are you going to bring in a nickel package and then let the Detroit Lions offensive line just bully you in the run game? Now, last year, we weren't bullying anyone in the run game. But this year, we should get back to business. So this medical clearance really fixed the 53-man roster dominoes, in my opinion. We have a lot of roster gymnastics that happen between the offseason and the start of training camp, and then even throughout training camp, and then at 53-man cuts. Sometimes, Brad will leave a couple of spots open. He has over the last couple of seasons, 1, 2, or 3 spots open after 53-man cuts. I think it's going to be pretty tough this year to do that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't leave a spot open and try to either scoop up another tight end or another player that we may need, maybe due to injury, hopefully not injury, in training camp. So the 53-man roster is impacted big time by Sam Laporta. The front office obviously brought in Tyler Conklin in the offseason just as insurance. He hasn't really done much. He wasn't ready. I think he was injured or something throughout OTAs in minicamp, didn't do a whole lot. But now Conklin and Brock Wright are not what we're depending on to carry the passing game torch heading into the season for the tight end room. And I don't think anyone really believes that a patched together tight end room or a patched together tight end rotation, if you will, was going to put the fear of God into Green Bay or Chicago or anybody else on a vital third down. I mean, do you agree or disagree? Who was really worried about the Lions on third down last year? Because I was certainly worried, and it wasn't for a good reason. I was worried because we couldn't move the ball at times. I was worried because we just didn't look like we had the confidence that we normally did. So now with Sam Laporta back, and I'm not trying to overblow, this and what it means, but this is huge. And for those of us that understand how important Sam Laporta was to this team in 2023. He was a big reason as to why the Lions were able to go the distance that they did all the way to the NFC Championship game. He was a huge reason as to why. It is not very often that you get a rookie tight end to put up damn near 1,000 yards in a rookie season and then could put up 1,000 yards every single year if he's healthy and playing. This repairs the red zone offense for the Lions. His leverage alone, in my opinion, again, after watching plenty hours of tape, it manipulates what those defenders underneath are willing to do, right? It also buys Jared Goff a little bit of an extra half a second sometimes to allow these routes to develop. So the medical drama is over, right? The scheme is now reloaded with the players that we need. So Sam Laporta's health, there are zero excuses now for this passing game to look stagnant. And honestly, there's going to be zero excuses for the run game to look stagnant at time. His clearance, it immediately removes the double teams off the wide receivers. Tyler Conklin and Brock Wright now can settle into a specialized or a high effective rotational role. Goff gets his ultimate security blanket back, right, before the first padded practice. And so then I'll leave you with a couple of questions. How much of a drop-off did you actually see in the offensive play calling last year when Sam Laporta went down? And do you expect him to reclaim his dominance or reclaim at least what he did from a Pro Bowl perspective immediately? I want to know. I want to hear from you. I want to know in the comments in the chat right now, but in the comments later, how many touchdowns do you think Sam Laporta should be projected to have this season? And if the back issues are truly behind him, what kind of ceiling are we talking about for Sam Laporta here in 2026? Glad to see he's back, man. Glad to see he's back. Full go. It's going to add that new layer that we're looking for in this offense. And again, like I said, Drew Petzing. Drew Petzing is going to have, he just has such a wealth of riches. He has such a wealth of riches in that offensive room. I don't know why, for some reason, this thing is not allowing me to stop recording. What's up with that? There it goes. New toys, man. New toys. They work great when they want to work. All right, so let me get in the chat now. So I'm going to be doing things a little bit different this year. I got to get Eric hopefully to get in line with it too. It's going to be rough at the very beginning, but so the goal is to talk about a segment. All right, during that segment, I really want it to be video quality, and maybe post edits. I can add some layering effects of pulling up stats or something, right? But the goal is to at least get some videos. Now, for 3 years, I have not done a great job at taking the morning show, which is 2 to 3 to 4 hours of content, and not repurposing it. Could you imagine how much better and how many more subscribers I would have if I would have done that? Just ran out of time, and I was sick. I mean, I've been sick a lot. Post-cancer has been rough. And this year, I'm hoping to have a much better season. One, I'm down 15 pounds now. And that's great, right? I'm down 15 pounds. I got 40 more to go. That's right. I want to get back to my fighting days, like my old fight weight, my old high school weight. When I used to box, I was 195 to 210. I want to get back into that range. 210 would be fine. But I definitely want to get back to pre-back injury weight. I was 215. I was healthy as all get out, and that's exactly where I want to be. So just like Sam Laporta's healthy with a back injury, I want to be healthy. I got back and neck injuries, man. It sucks, but want to put it back together. And I'm doing all that because I want to be more consistent, right? I want my energy back. I want my drive back. This is not a sponsor yet, but I have to shout this out because I just got a 10-pound bag of protein powder yesterday morning at 4 a.m. And I've had 4 shakes since. But the first shake was incredible. The taste, the flavor, the smoothness. Syntha 6. It's a red bag. Syntha 6 vanilla. By far the absolute best protein on the planet. There's a couple of things I don't like. I don't like the maltodextrin. I don't want that in my diet. That gives you a huge sugar rush. It's 10 times worse than sugar. So if you're diabetic or anything, make sure you consult with your physician if you drink this stuff. But what it does, though, and I did some research, is they utilize the maltodextrin to like pump your muscles so that you can get all of the protein and the enzymes and amino acids and everything into your muscles quicker, into the cells quicker, I guess. That's why they use it. I guess that's what sugar does too. Sugar, obviously your muscles need sugar. I don't know. I was going deep off into why they put this crap in there, but there's other reasons too. Anyway, if there's only one thing I could say about it that I don't like, it's that. Otherwise, it's loaded with amino acids, BCAAs, and like 10 different types of protein. Or 6 different types of protein. It's crazy. It's good stuff. And no bloat. Don't feel awful on it. Feel great. Energy's good. It's best stuff in the world. Just sent a 10-pound bag to my kids too. They're gonna be happy. All right. So Trace sent me a message this morning clarifying that Sam Laporta had the microdiscectomy. You know, I knew that, didn't I? I knew that. They removed the piece of the herniated disc that was pressing on the nerve. So that's huge, right? Whenever you can have a microdiscectomy surgery versus a full fusion, that's huge. But here's the problem. It can herniate again, right? So if they removed it, they took the squishiness, you got your layers. Let's just say that this is L4 and this is L5, and you got that little squishy donut in the middle, right? You got it. So that, let's say that this is your spinal cord here. So that donut, ends right here. But when it leaks out and it starts to press on the thecal sac, or blow through the thecal sac and press that nerve, that is when you can have bilateral leg pain or all sorts of pain. Testicular pain, you can have problems urinating. I mean, there's so many different things that can go on, which I had when I had my injury. The reason why I had to have emergency surgery is I couldn't urinate no more. After a couple weeks of waiting, all of a sudden, like I'm in the hospital and they had to put me into surgery within a couple of days because it was about to get bad. So I can only imagine, what he was going through, but having a microdiscectomy surgery, he's not fully out of the clear. I mean, no one ever is. It can still herniate again because it's not fused. But in his case, they got the best doctors in the world. So I would hope that he's all good. And the fact that he hasn't had any setbacks is a good sign. Let me get into the chat now. What do you guys think about Sam Laporta and how it's going to fix that offense? Mr. Thomas says a couple of weeks. Yeah. So when I had the injury, it was the height of the pandemic. And so they were not doing any surgeries unless it was life-saving surgeries only. They literally sent me home with pain meds and said, good luck. We'll get you in when we can. Like they were not allowed to take anyone in for surgeries. Like I wasn't even really supposed to be at the hospital because everything was closed down. You couldn't be there unless you're having a heart attack or stroke, right? Or you got pew-pewed, or something. They didn't want you there. And so they sent me home with medications and said, we'll get you in when they can. And then it was a couple weeks, maybe 10 days. And I literally just stood up off the couch to say goodbye to Megan. She was leaving to go into work or something. She worked at the hospital, same hospital. And all of a sudden, like my leg went volcano hot, like the worst pain in the world. And then it cramped up and it locked up. And no matter what I did, it got worse and worse and worse. I literally went and hobbled to the bathroom, turned on the tub, right, in cold water to put my leg in the water to try to make that burning feeling go away. Oh, it made it worse because all the nerves were excited and going crazy. So that cold water felt like it was minus 50 on my leg. So nothing I could do made it better. And then within a matter of an hour or two, it was like, okay, this isn't right. And it's really bad. Notified the surgeon. And the next morning, like, dude, I can't I can't pee, dude. Like, what's going on? Go to the hospital. We got to do surgery. And so I get there, they do all the checks, and they still couldn't get me in. They loaded me up with all sorts of stuff. 3 days later, I had surgery. That was the height of the pandemic. And then a month later, they did my neck because I had a 100-pound well pump fell on my head at the same time that these stairs collapsed underneath me. Crazy, man. Just the shit that's happened since 2020 to me is insane. The fact that I'm even here, I mean, someone's watching out for me because I've gone through a lot. But I won't stop doing this. I love it. All right, so let me get back into Sam Laporta. Enough personal stuff this morning. Let's get into Sam. Let's see. Brian says, and good morning, Brian, new name, or at least haven't seen you in a while, says, there are a lot of mouths to feed. I think Sam has 5 to 6 touchdowns this year. Ooh, that'd be a little light for me. Looking for J-Mo to have a career year and for Tesla to be more involved than last season. And Gibbs will get his, no doubt. Good statement, man. I believe you. I believe that there's a lot of mouths to feed. And I think that if you look back, you know what, let's take a look back at 2023 for a moment. Because we had a lot of mouths to feed back then, right? Lions stats from 2023. I'm just curious. I haven't looked at it in a while. I'm just curious what happened that year. So David Montgomery went for 1,015 rushing yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown went for 1,515. And here we go. St. Brown, 16 games. Wrong one. Hold on. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 16 games, targeted 164 times, 119 catches, 15-15 in yards, 12.7 average. That's killer, dude. That's killer for Amon-Ra. 10 tugs. Sam Laporta, second in line. 86 receptions on 120 targets, 889 yards, 10.3 per 10 tugs. Josh Reynolds was number 3. Khalif Raymond was number 4. Jameson Williams was number 5. But remember, he only got in like the last few games that year, I believe, right? The last few, if I'm not mistaken. Like maybe the last 6, off and on. So then there's Jahmyr Gibbs. He was targeted 71 times. He was the 6th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th highest targeted receiver as a running back on the squad. And then David Montgomery was right underneath him with 24 targets. So they dropped off in a hurry. Actually, no, let me take that back. Jahmyr Gibbs was the 3rd highest targeted receiver, even more so than than Josh Reynolds that year. So if you fast forward to 2024, I mean, it changed big time, right? Because then Amon-Ra was still number 1. J-Mo was number 2 with targets. Sam Laporta was still number 3. But I think where you're going with this is we didn't have a Isaac Tesla. We had Tim Patrick, and he was really good for us when we needed him. He didn't really start to develop until the second half of the year for us. But I think that where you're going here is we didn't have a Tesla back then, and now we do. And 16 catches and 6 tugs last year is crazy efficiency. In the fact that even if you get him involved at 70, even like 80, 90 targets a year, which is a lot, because even back then, J-Mo only got 90. Laporta got 83. That's a lot of targets. I don't know that he's going to be able to get that many. But I would say this. I think that you're going to see the reverse for Tesla. I think that he's going to be a touchdown machine. I don't think he's going to need a ton of targets, and I think that he's going to have a higher average per catch. I think that's what we should expect from Tesla. He's going to be a weapon for sure. But importing Sam Laporta again into this offense, I don't see them limiting what he's going to get. Now, in a perfect world, if you were able to take, what is that? 230, 310, 370, call it 500 targets a year. There's 522 back here in 2024. Last season Jared Goff had thrown the ball 550 times. So let's just say 500 attempts a year by Jared Goff. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Isaac Tesla. Those are your top 5. If you were to evenly distribute the ball, which won't happen, but if everyone got 100 targets, who do you think would have the best average? Average per catch? And who do you think would have the most touchdowns? If you could even it all out. Now, I haven't done the numbers, but I think I'm going to follow this up with a what if you did this kind of video. And if you did the equal distribution, what would happen based on what we know about the numbers already? And I think what you're going to find out, I'm just foreshadowing. I think what we're going to find out is that Isaac Tesla's efficiency is going to be off the charts, like way off the charts. Like he might end up with 20 touchdowns. I just thinking through the numbers theoretically in my head, he might have 20 touchdowns based on what he did last year. I'm not saying it's going to happen. This is going to be a what if, kind of video if I get it done today. But anyway, to your point, yes, I see Tesla having more action this year. I see Jahmyr Gibbs having, the same, if not a little bit more action in the receiving game. I think the most important thing for Drew Petzing with all of this is managing the distribution and making sure that he mixes everything up. And Jared Goff has to do the same thing. Jared can't have laser eyes, right, where he's just St. Brown, St. Brown, St. Brown. Oh, J-Mo, St. Brown, St. Brown. Oh, Sam. Can't do that. He has to be in rhythm, and he has to be on pace, and he has to be able to get, the ball out there to the open man. And look, Jared's really good at doing that. But sometimes he gets fixated, on a certain receiver. And look, maybe personnel, we may not know that there's an injury behind the scenes. Someone just got wrecked, a few plays ago, and they're not feeling it, but they're out there running a route, but you're not throwing them the ball. That kind of stuff happens, Well, we don't hear about it, but it does happen. So anyway, good statement from you this morning. Let's give you a big shout out this morning. Where's it at?
That's a big time play.
There you go. Let me wind back a little bit further. Thomas says tight ends are important to every team. 1,000%, man. 1,000%. Robbie says, I was disgusted with the formations that we came out in and how we handicapped our speed and agility. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. I must be part of another conversation. Robbie does say, I think Sam hits 600, 700, and 7 tugs. I think Tesla takes on a more dominant role, and we run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. Okay. Thomas says, did you know that Goff threw the ball 578, 25? I'm seeing 550. I don't see 578. I'm looking at 550. Where do you get 578 from? ESPN is reporting 550. Let me go to, I've got all these sites saved here. Hold on. It's another thing that I did this year. Like, I don't know why I didn't do it before, but I got all these bookmark tabs now on the top of my screen, so I can just go right to what I need. And I'm going to keep on slimming it down so I can just go right into Jared Goff passing. You know what I mean? All right, so last year, according to team rankings, which I find to be one of the more accurate sites out there, they say 578. ESPN has 550. So that is odd. That is very odd. Why is ESPN underreporting? Oh, hold on. I'm looking at the wrong damn thing. I see 578 now. Those were his passing attempts. My bad. The receiving numbers only reflected 550. So where did the other numbers come from? Where did he throw the other 28 balls? How does that make any sense? Am I just being dumb this morning? Jared Goff threw 578 attempts last year, but under receiving, it's only reporting 550. How does that make sense? There's 28 passes attempted missing somewhere. Let me go back to trending. I don't know. I'll have to figure that one out later. Okay. Yeah, maybe throwing the ball away. I mean, I guess you would think that you still got to put it on somebody. But that's a good statement there. You're probably right. Probably spot on. Maybe I need more coffee this morning. All right. All right. So talking about quarterbacks, let's divert a little bit. Next topic after this one is Amon-Ra St. Brown. We're also going to touch on today that ranking that came out, the youth ranking, and then where the Lions are sitting right now as far as what developments have come out over the last 24 hours. What does the NFL even think about the Lions this year? What's the consensus? And it's like the Lions are no longer the NFL darlings. It's like they've lost some respect somewhere. And then I also want to talk about Luke Altmaier. I got a wild hair up my ass yesterday. And I got this funny feeling. about Luke Altmaier and what could potentially happen with Teddy B this year. And it's happened before. And you're just going to have to sit and wait and find out what I'm talking about probably in about 15 minutes or so. But let's switch gears here. Let's go to training camp preview. This is by Tim Twentyman. So we're talking about quarterback and numbers. Last year, says Jared Goff had 17 games, 393 completions, 68% completion rate, 4,564 yards. So I'm going to pause right there. How much more is that this year? Where does Jared Goff get to in 2026? Does he break 5,000? Because I have him breaking 5,000. Can he do it? And can he do it without, can he do it without being, just a one-dimensional quarterback? Let me know what you think. So 34 tugs last year, only 8 interceptions. I mean, that is a quality year. Only 8 interceptions is insanely good. He needs to stay under 10 interceptions this year. Anything under 10, I view as elite because it's a tough league, man. It's tough to be consistent. And it's definitely tough to not throw the ball in other teams' hands. And it takes 2, right? Your receivers got to be in the right spot for everything to work. But let's see what Tim Twentyman said. It's his best competition, backup quarterback. Can Altmaier show enough in training camp and the preseason to push Bridgewater for the backup job? 100% yes, he can. And I'm going to explain why in a minute. Lions head coach Dan Campbell has spoken about the trust and the comfort level of having a veteran like Bridgewater backing up Goff. Bridgewater has played in 83 career games with 65 starts. Campbell has all the confidence in the world in Bridgewater that he can step in and keep the ship afloat. Altmaier started the last 3 years at Illinois, completing better than 60% of his passes all 3 seasons with 57 tugs, 21 interceptions. That's a good rate over 3 years, right? That's less than, 7 or less a year on average, right? Or 7 a year on average. Campbell talked about the confidence that Altmaier came into the offseason training program with and after signing him as an undrafted free agent. Here's the quote by Dan Campbell where he says, yeah, he didn't lack confidence for sure. I mean, what we thought he would be at this point, I would say it's kind of held true. And what I mean by that is he's able to kind of retain the information. We get him so far. We feel he's getting a little bit better every day. Talk about the processing speed of a quarterback. I mean, that's great for a rookie, right? I'm wondering if he's, ahead of where Hooker was at. And I would assume that he is because Altmaier played in a little bit more of a pro-ready style of a system. Whereas Hooker came from that, quirky Tennessee offense that was definitely not anything compared to an NFL system. He goes in and he says, Dan Campbell says he's got a lot on his plate, but he knows what the calls are. He knows where the guys are supposed to be, the shifts, the motions, and that's good for a young guy. That's really good. So we will see when it really gets going. End quote. Altmaier will get his opportunity in the preseason, according to Tim Twentyman, and we'll see if he can give Bridgewater some good competition. Twentyman's take, breaking down the quarterbacks, he says, Goff led the NFL's number 4 scoring offense, which, by the way, hold on, I got to pause. I'm not saying that this has never happened before, but you know what I've noticed? Because I always put in Rock's take or Rock's read in all of my articles. Twentyman's take. That's new to me. I haven't seen this. I'm also seeing it on just about every other writer's publication. I'm not going to name names, but that's new to me, and I love it. I love that Tim Twentyman's giving his take and not just a journalistic view, right? Not just like a beat reporter view, not, the Lions insider view. If you get what I'm saying, like there's a difference between writing your opinion and then writing an article that doesn't have your opinion. If you do both, like I do, I've always done both because I feel like it's important to break it down and then also say, this is what I'm thinking, or this is my prediction. This is my take. This is my read. And now I'm seeing that everywhere else, and I love it. I think it's super important. Hold on a sec. I'm getting a call from Ohio. Hold on. All right. So he goes in and talks about Goff led the NFL's number 4 scoring offense last year, number 5 total offense, number 3 passing attack, while ranking 2nd in passing yards, 2nd in passing touchdowns, and 3rd in passer rating, and 5th in completion percentage. Like this is not easy to do, and Goff has been doing it for the last few seasons. He has complete control of the line of scrimmage to get the offense in the right play, and has great rapport with all the skill set weapons. He's an accurate passer who is perfect for the new OC, Drew Petzing's matchup-based offense. And that's important delineation to make here. Drew Petzing, what he means by the matchup offense, and I think you've heard Drew Petzing kind of allude to this too, that each and every week is going to depend on the matchup. Like that's not a surprise. Every single team does that, but they're going to do it a little bit differently because the Lions have so many weapons. They have so many, different ways to attack a defense. Every single week is going to be created for that defense. So every week's plan is, and again, that's no different for any other NFL team either, but the matchup portion of this is making sure that you are isolating the matchups to find the best matchup and to take advantage of the defense where you can. And Drew Petzing excels at that. And if you don't think so, go ask Trey McBride how he was able to do what he did, being the only man left on the field. So I love what Drew Petzing is going to bring in this case. The by the numbers thing, yeah, that's cool, but I never really read it. Let me give you my take on Altmaier. And I guess let me give you my take on what I think could happen in 2026. Something different in 2026. First, I got to look up something real quick. Something I forgot to look up. But it doesn't affect my take. Here's my take on Altmaier. If he can prove in training camp that he can do everything that Teddy Bridgewater can do, if he can prove in training camp that he has as strong of an arm, probably stronger than Teddy Bridgewater, if he can prove in minicamp that he can, or in training camp that he can be trusted, and that he does understand the offense, that he does understand the motions, and he can execute at a high level, and he's earned the trust from the players. I think the Lions will end up keeping Altmaier over Teddy Bridgewater. And there is a case for this. There's two cases for this. The first one is, okay, well, how do you keep Altmaier from getting exposed to waivers, right? Or getting exposed to cuts? Because if he plays that well in preseason and things are going well for him, another team is going to pick him up. He might be the most polished, the most underrated quarterback that wasn't drafted. He should have been drafted. I don't know why he wasn't drafted. He was definitely the most, in my opinion, the most polished quarterback. One of in the top 4 rounds of quarterbacks that were taken outside of the number 1 and number 2. All right, Ty Simpson and oh my God, what's his nuts from Illinois or from Indiana? I can't remember his name. But anyway, outside of Ty Simpson and in the Indiana quarterback, because I can't remember his name right now, I felt like Altmaier had a really good chance of getting drafted. But the question will be, if he does all of this and does it at a high level and excels in preseason, it's just preseason. But it means something when he puts tape out there. And if the Lions were to cut him with the expectation that he's going to come back to the practice squad, I don't think he's going to last. Now, again, this is hinging on him having a really great summer, heading into preseason, doing, well in preseason and making it very difficult on the Lions. So how do you not expose him? Well, here's the first case. The first case is Teddy B is a vet, right? He can choose where he wants to be. So why would you not keep the young pup, cut Teddy, but Teddy understands he's coming back to stay on the practice squad? The Lions have typically only kept 2 quarterbacks, other than I think the year of the pandemic when they were allowed to keep 3. Now you can have an emergency quarterback, but that's only on game days, right? And it's for a very specific reason. The rules surrounding that are still gray to me. But I would say that you would probably end up letting Teddy go with the handshake deal saying, hey, you're coming back, and you don't have to protect him because he doesn't have to sign anywhere else. Teddy B can stay right there. And then you have him on, and then for whatever reason, like you could put Altmaier down. You could temporarily put him on PUP. You could put him on, any other list that you want if you really wanted to. And to say that doesn't happen around the league, it does. Right? They use those lists in many different ways to make their roster work for them. I'm not saying the Lions would do something egregious, but I'm just saying things happen. You could bring up Teddy B for a game if you needed to, if you felt the need was there. But having Altmaier or Teddy, I think, in the game, it's not going to really change a whole lot. I don't think either one of them is really going to win you a whole lot of football games. So would you rather have the young guy that you can develop that could potentially get stolen away from you if you cut him, knowing that your vet would end up sticking around, or would you rather keep Teddy and then lose the guy? So case number 1 is you keep Altmaier, you cut Teddy, Teddy comes back to the practice squad, no harm, right? No harm done. And then you can play the roster gymnastics however you need to for the rest of the year. So that's option number 1 to me. Here's option number 2. And this option is, like I said, I had a wild hair thought up my ass last night. And this could happen. It's happened before. But if it does happen, there are some, I guess there's some fallout to this that maybe wouldn't be in the best interest of the Lions for 2026, but it kind of makes sense. I'm going to throw a name at y'all. And his name is Sean Dion Hamilton. Do you remember him? He's coach for the Lions. I'm looking at the dates here. So, you remember what happened with Hamilton? So I'm looking at the dates here. So back in March of 2022, the Lions re-signed Hamilton as a linebacker. And then in August of that year, during 53-man cuts, the Lions released him in like one of the first waves of cuts. But why did they do that? Because Sean Dion Hamilton wanted to be a coach. He was kind of done playing. And so the Lions hired him as a defensive assistant through the William Clay Ford minority coaching assistantship. And that was only 15 days after his release. Kind of planned, right? Had to be planned. We've heard as much over the last few seasons that it was kind of planned, that he was going to become a coach. That's why he was one of the first ones waived. Not that he would have made the roster. I have no idea if he would have made the roster. So I could see a very similar path with Teddy B here. Teddy B is a coach. He's been a coach of a high school team. I think that he has the wherewithal, even though he said publicly he never wants to be a coach in the NFL because of the grueling schedule that they live. Teddy B could do it. It's still a grueling schedule being a player. It's not that much different. He doesn't have to be a head coach. Being a positional coach, being a positional assistant, being an assistant period, being an assistant quarterbacks coach to Brunell. I think that's where you put Teddy B. He's still on the sideline. He's still in Goff's ear. He's still doing everything that you brought him in to be. And he can still be a mentor to the players on the field. So I see a path where maybe the Lions have the reality of saying, hey, Teddy, like, dude, do you want to coach for us? Because you're probably not going to make the roster. We do need a quarterback. If we do keep Altmaier, and we would love to keep you on the practice squad, but what about just becoming a coach? And then the Lions could go out and find another quarterback if they needed to, but Teddy B would still be there. And again, I'm only saying this could be a possibility because I firmly believe, and this is no shade at Teddy, look, Teddy just hasn't played, right? I don't trust Teddy to go in and do anything. I really don't. And we'll see what happens in preseason. And if he can lead this team down the field and score some points, great. I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, he's just not a top-tier quarterback as a backup, in my opinion. He could totally surprise me this year because he's more dedicated to playing than he is coaching. So let me know what you guys think about path number 2 or path number 1. Lions keep Altmaier because they're going to place Teddy B on the practice squad, having that vet relationship. They'll be able to keep him around. Or path number 2 is Teddy B finally just wants to become a coach in the NFL. Lions give him that opportunity to become an assistant and make it happen. Now, as far as contract-wise, though, the Lions are only paying Teddy B a $1.8 million contract with $1.587 in guaranteed money. I would assume, now that would be a lot of money for an assistant coach because not all assistant coaches make that kind of money. I think the average for an assistant in the NFL's, like in the 200,000 range, 150,000 range, definitely not in the 7-figure range. I mean, even some of your offensive and defensive coordinators in the league don't make that kind of money. I would say that they would have no reason to not carry his contract over for the year. And that would probably be a prerequisite anyway for him to be able to do that. I don't know. I think it's possible. I think it's possible. And that way they keep him around. You know what I'm saying? Man, Nightbot's going nuts today. I tried to fix that. I tried to fix it so it didn't just throw everything out there all at once. Maybe I need to go back and relearn how to use the damn thing. Oh, we got a Bears troll in the house. Where's he at? Who is it? Ace Boogie? Is that it? Where's Ace Boogie at? I don't see any messages yet. Come on, where's Ace Boogie at? Someone get me up to speed here. What's going on? I don't see it. All right. I sound low. 200,000 sounds. What? Low will? What is that? Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about the contracts? Yeah, I'll look them up here in just a second. I mean, let me throw this at you. So the Ravens and other teams around the league, they do this 20 for 20 every year. They bring in 20 assistants that are going to work their asses off, and they make $20,000 for the entire summer. So they work like 60 hours a week. They get paid 20 grand for the whole summer, right? But those people, will end up, men and women, could end up getting a spot on a team later and then making all those relationships. I would do it in a heartbeat. I would do it for free, to be honest with you. You just pay for all my flights, lodging, meals, all that good stuff. I'll do it for free. 100%. All right, so NFL positional coaches, linebackers coach, quarterbacks coach, not coordinators, typically earn between $300,000 and $1 million annually, with an average of roughly $400 to $600. Positional coaches, assistant positional coaches or assistants are way less than that, and that's what I'm talking about. So if Teddy B were to come in and be an assistant, I mean, I don't know what type of, what type of name, job, they would give him. The title don't matter. Assistant positional coaches average between 150 and 300,000. So I was spot on. I thought it was in that 200 range. But there's a big difference between assistant and positional, and then obviously offensive, defensive coordinator, then head coach. So title doesn't matter. Keep them around. All right, we're going to take a brief break. When we get back, we're going to talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown and what Jared Goff had to say about him. Mentioned a little bit yesterday, but now we're going to uncover the rest of it. Be right back.
Throwing middle, caught inside the 5. Jameer Gibbs to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. 14 yards on the strike. Goff to Gibbs. You can't cover that man one-on-one. You just can't do it.
Nice job.
Jared takes the snap back, looking, throwing middle. Got Amon-Ra inside the 2, to the 1, to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Nice job.
Mariota's got it back. Pressure comes. He's hit. Slips out of it. Rolling to his right. Now he's going down. Brian Branch got him. Sack for the Lions. Snap taken by Mariota. Wants to throw it. Gonna get hit. Gonna get sacked.
Yes,
Take it down. Brian Branch got him second time today.
Nice job.
Hands it to Gibbs, running right, runs through a tackle, gets down to the 10, Gibbs to the 5, still fighting, down to the 2, down to the 1, to the end zone!
Yes.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! He did not quit!
Nice job.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again!
All right, and we're back. Welcome into the Rise of Grind Morning Show. My name is Will Rock. I'm your host of DFJ Sports, Detroit Football Journal, Rocked On Detroit Lions. Today, we're just kind of talking about the Detroit Lions news and rumors, a couple of major developments that happened over the last 24 hours. Sam Laporta was finally cleared, full clear, for training camp. As you may remember, he attended Tight End University, and that was probably the tip of the iceberg for him, really getting back into playing shape, getting back on the field, running around with the guys a little bit, and feeling better. So excited for Sam Laporta to be back in the fold here for 2026. Also talked about Luke Altmaier and the quarterback situation. Could the Lions keep 3 quarterbacks this year? They've only kept 2, other than the third quarterback that was added for the COVID season. And so my question really was, number one, would you want to expose Luke Altmaier to the potential of losing him after cuts? Would you rather keep Luke Altmaier and then bring Teddy B back to the practice squad where you could always elevate him at any point in time throughout the season? And I guess the other thing would be, I guess the other thing that I'm thinking now is, would the Lions bring in another quarterback should one become available? I think that position is still fluid. I still don't trust what the Lions have done there. I think that Brad Holmes has kind of failed with the backup quarterback position. I don't think that it's a bad thing to bring in a highly rated quarterback to compete in the room, because it's just going to make the players better, right? The better second quarterback you have, even the better third quarterback that you have, everyone gets better. I mean, we know that iron sharpens iron, right? We know that. Why would you want to bring in a lower tier quarterback at any point in time? I mean, that would be like you're out there swinging against Jello. You know what I mean? Instead of iron, chopping iron, it'd be iron chopping Jello, because a bad second or third quarterback is going to make your team worse. Maybe they're not executing the plays. Maybe they're, causing penalties. The snap counts off. Plays not getting called right. They just don't understand the play or the playbook. And then it falls back to your number one, Jared Goff, to have to put in more snaps, to have to put in more time. And there's nothing wrong with that. Jared Goff taking the majority of snaps, there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, I think you want to save the guy for the regular season as much as possible. Next up, we're going to talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown, what Jared Goff had to say about him. And then what Amon-Ra St. Brown said, that in his, what I call off-season confessions about what he's not doing this year and how it's different and what type of an impact is it going to have on the season. Be curious to see if it helps or hinders. There's a lot of conversation with Lions fans over the last couple of years blaming Dan Campbell for running these guys into the ground, blaming Dan Campbell for practicing too hard. Other players coming to this team like Avonte Maddox and saying, oh, you guys are doing live hitting during the season? We would never do that in Philly. And then Philly wins a Super Bowl and things start to get questioned. or after Philly wins a Super Bowl and Avonte Maddox comes to the Lions and says that, things start to get questioned. Well, if Philly's not doing that, they just won a Super Bowl, so that must work. It has nothing to do with it. Health has everything to do with it. And there's really not a whole lot of injuries happening in practice that have really mattered, right? Players are going to get injured. The last biggest injury that I can think of that was player on player, and you might have to correct me because I think I'm partially right on this, but I believe it was Khalil Dorsey that took out, his name is escaping me right now, one of our tight ends. He took out his knee in practice, if I'm not mistaken. It wasn't Brock Wright. It wasn't Sam Laporta. It was Shane Zielstra. That's who it was. It was Shane Zielstra. And I'm pretty sure it was Khalil Dorsey that did it. We may have to correct me there. That's the last major injury that I can think of that was player on player in a practice setting. And during camp, all bets are off, right? But at the same time, if you don't think that Dan Campbell has gone to each and every player, in a meeting and said, hey, we want to win this year. We understand that you have a lot to prove, bottom 40, right? But we're not going at knees. We're tackling the right way or we're not tackling at all. We're not trying to injure our guys. We're not taking cheap shots. We don't need highlight reels in camp. And before I get into Amon-Ra St. Brown, I do want to mention one other thing. I said this the other day too, and I just want to reiterate it. What's about to happen in the next week is you're going to see these clips on Twitter. The beat reporters that are there covering, I won't be there this year other than traditional training camp practices. But you're going to see clips that come out. Ooh, DJ Reed just got cooked by Jameson Williams. Ooh, Jahmyr Gibbs just, shit on Jack Campbell. Whatever, right? You're going to see these clips. 7-on-7. Ooh, Jared Goff got sacked 5 times. Or Jared Goff threw 3 interceptions. Whatever it is. 7-on-7 does not allow Jared Goff to have any time to set up. 7-on-7 does not give Jared Goff any protection. And the other way around too. 7-on-7 doesn't do anything for the defense. It's not a functional way to look at how your team is going to be. So what's going to happen is these rookies, these free agents, all these undrafted guys that we brought in, they're going to have all these highlight reel moments in 7-on-7. And then everyone's going to say, oh, this guy's going to make the team. Oh, that guy's going to make the team. Oh, my God, this guy's going to be an all-pro. Forget about it, okay? Because it doesn't happen. And 7-on-7 is meaningless. I don't even know why they do 7-on-7 anymore anyway. But 11-on-11 with pads on is what matters. And if those highlight reels are happening then I'd put a little bit more credibility to it. So be cautious, have fun, right? Of course have fun, have the conversation. But then again, just understand 7-on-7 is not meaningful to how that player is actually developing. It's just for the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator to emphasize some structure on these plays, right? That we're going to get the ball to these players. We don't need all the rest of the guys on the field. We're just trying to execute these plays. Offensively and defensively, we're trying to get these things done. That's what 7-on-7 is for. And you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, the only ones that really mattered last year was Isaac Tesla and what he was doing. That reigned supreme. That showed up in the regular season. every once in a while, one of these guys is going to work out. But again, let me run through 7-on-7 and why teams do it. So when you run 7-on-7 drills in training camp, there's a few things that every NFL team is trying to do. You want to isolate and rapidly develop the passing game without the physical wear and tear on the trenches, right? You're trying to save them. You remove the lineman and the full contact, right? Because it's you're maximizing the reps. Less guys means less issues, and less guys means you can get more done. You can run more reps with fewer guys on the field. Quarterbacks, they're working on progression. They're getting, they're finding their rhythm. They're dropping 3, 5, 7, whatever it is. Quarterbacks are practicing, reading coverages. They're practicing, throwing with anticipation, or working through, like I said, the receiver progression safely and efficiently without having a defensive end breathing down on his neck, right? Route precision is probably the most important thing that comes out of this for the offense. With less guys on the field, in the middle, in the trash, you can now, watch what Jameson Williams is doing on his route concepts and in how he's running his route. Is he hitting his landmarks? And watching, does he snap it off correctly? Is he getting there on time? So with less guys on the field, you've got all these cameras now that are on the field that are able to, give you a nice overhead shot of what's going on. And so you can go in after the fact, you cut up all the clips, you look at it, and you can see exactly what's going on. So it's really just for the coaches to get a better idea of how the players are developing. And then, to even a better degree, it's so that the players on the field can execute exactly what they're being asked to do with more precision. When the game happens, or when 11-11 happens, now it's time to put it together, right? Defensively, the defensive backs and the linebackers are now forced to communicate and improve, their discipline in what they're seeing in practice on varying the schemes a little bit. So conditioning is probably the other thing, right? You're just making the guys run more and more and more and more so they can stay conditioned. You see a lot of tempo run out of 7-on-7. Getting guys back up to the line, getting them ready to roll, and getting them ingrained into the tempo situation when and if the Lions do run it this year. All right, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra's case is about the complete job, right? Jared Goff called Amon-Ra St. Brown the best receiver in the NFL. And I think the important part is how he built that argument. Goff did not talk about only the catches or the route highlights or the touchdowns. He talked about catching and running after the catch, blocking, practicing, and raising the standard for everybody around him. The production by Amon-Ra St. Brown, it supports the argument. It supports the case. Since 2022, St. Brown leads the NFL receivers in receptions. He ranks 4th in receiving yards and 3rd in touchdowns. He has become Goff's most dependable answer without becoming a one-dimensional slot target. St. Brown blocks. No block, no rock. We know that. It's the way it works in Detroit. And he works his ass off. He works through contact. He converts on critical downs. He can align, the slot. He can align in the slot, move through the stack formations, and motion across the formations. His presence, it creates cleaner opportunities for players like Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, and Jahmyr Gibbs to have more success. Of course, you have Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, all the other legit arguments in this conversation. In Goff's opinion on his teammate and the advocacy for his teammate, it's not an objective ruling, I guess, by nature, but the complete receiver case is real. Very few stars combine elite production with unglamorous work, right? That keeps an offense functional from down to down. And that's exactly what St. Brown is. Goff called St. Brown the league's best receiver. That's not a joke. That's not a gimmick. St. Brown leads the majority in all the majority of all stats since 2022. Blocking, which St. Brown does every single down that he's not catching, strengthens the argument because some of those other receivers mentioned, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, they don't. In his practice standard, it affects the entire offense. For Drew Petzing, it can move him through the formation easier with a guy like St. Brown. The presence of St. Brown, the matchups that it creates for Detroit, and the other weapons that are able to piggyback off of what St. Brown does, that is why he is the complete receiver. That is why St. Brown is one of the best receivers in the league. And according to Jared Goff, he's the best receiver in the league. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Obviously, if you're from another team in the chat right now, you're not going to agree. So you tell me, who's your number one receiver in the league? Is it somebody on your team? Or is it from somewhere else? All right, next up, my dog's yelling at me for food. I'll take a brief 30 seconds. I'll be right back. When I get back, we're going to get into some of the most, I guess the other bigger development. The Lions just fell completely in the rankings. And I don't understand why, especially when you look at how many players the Lions had in that top 10 ESPN list. I think I know a reason as to why maybe they fell in the overall ranking or in the under 25 talent ranking. But we'll talk about it when I get back. We'll be right back in just a few moments. I don't need the snack. My dog needs the snack. He's hungry. I'm going to go get him some food. We'll be right back.
Middle caught inside the 5. Jahmyr Gibbs to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. 14 yards on the strike. Goff to Gibbs. You can't cover that man one-on-one. You just can't do it.
Nice job.
Jared takes the snap, back looking, throwing middle. Got Amon-Ra inside the 2, to the 1, to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra, St. Brown. Amon-Ra, St. Brown.
Nice job.
Mariota's got it back. Pressure comes. He's hit. Slips out of it. Rolling to his right. Now he's going down. Brian Branch got him. Sack for the Lions. Snap taken by Mariota. Wants to throw it. Gonna get hit. Gonna get sacked.
Yes,
Take it down. Brian Branch got him second time today.
Nice job.
Hands it to Gibbs, running right, runs through a tackle, gets down to the 10, Gibbs through the 5, still fighting, down to the 2, down to the 1, to the end zone! Yes. Touchdown, Detroit Lions! He did not quit!
Nice job.
Off to throw again, does, middle, J-Mo angling to the end zone, touchdown Detroit Lions! J-Mo flips into the end zone for 6.
Nice job. You talking about gut punch up the middle, then talking about tossing it on the edge, and once you get him out on the edge, Sonic is gone.
Inside the 20, inside the 10, inside the 5. Touchdown, Detroit Lions, 44 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs putting together a day.
Hat trick. Nice job.
There's your victory formation. Kyle Allen will take the snap, take a knee, and that'll do it. Two teams will meet out in the middle of the field to say job well done, job better done on this day by your Detroit Lions. As for just the second time since 1939 they have come on the road and beaten Washington, they do it today by a score of 44-22. Big bounce back for this football team, coming off an effort they were not happy with.
Nice job.
Nice job, Dan. Dan Miller, man. Dan the man. Love it. Can't wait to be hearing it all season long. All right. Shout back out to this. This statement by Ace Boogie says, next season, you mean this season? Or are you talking about 2027? He says, next season, Bears 12-5, Packers 10-7, Vikings 9-8, Lions 6-11. Bro, you must have hit your head really hard. Like, really hard. Harder than when I had a 100-pound well pump fell on my head after dropping 10 feet on my back and neck. And that was pretty hard on a concrete slab. You hit yours harder. Sorry, bro. You have that all mixed up and flipped upside down. For the simple fact that you don't think that the Vikings are going to be last and that you gave them more than a 500 win record tells me you don't know football. I'm just saying. That tells me that, or you're just a straight up hater. Right? I mean, that's the only thing that I can think of. Because I mean, the Vikings are deplorable right now. They don't even have a quarterback. They have one receiver, and their running back room is trash. Their defense is okay, but they lost a lot of players this year too. And then you have the Packers. They don't have Micah Parsons. Remember, they didn't have any first-round picks this year, so they didn't get better. At least from a youth perspective, they did not get better. And Jordan Love is not a great quarterback. I think he's better than Caleb Williams, but he's not a great quarterback. Packers will potentially be in second place. And then there's the Bears. I mean, for just this reason alone, just this reason. Let me skip down here. Let me skip down. You know, the NFL put something out about a week ago. And they're talking about the NFC North's like biggest issues left on their team. And I'm just going to say it. I think the biggest issue that is left on the Bears team is Caleb Williams. I'm not even going to lie. I don't care that he's on the Madden cover. I like, that's not a victory. No, nobody really wants to be on the Madden cover because then their season usually goes to shit. I don't know who's calling right now, but I don't have phone lines open. Their season usually goes to shit. But as far as the Bears, look, the interior of the Bears defensive line heading into 2025, at least, headlined in 2025 by Gervon Dexter, Grady Jarrett, Andrew Billings. It was not good enough, right? It wasn't good enough. Chicago struggled against the run, and then they logged the sixth lowest quarterback pressure rate. This spring, they replaced Billings with an equally average player in Neville Gallimore, and then they added a few more depth pieces. But in other words, no improvement on the defensive side of the football. And if you think that they're going to come in and get 20-plus turnovers, you're crazy. It's just not going to happen. in a competitive division where the Lions got better and healthier, the trenches are weak in Chicago. But how about that offensive line? I know the offensive line in Chicago has been talked about in a good light. I don't see it good at all. You replaced Drew Dahlman, one of the best centers in the league, after he decided to, I'm going to retire. And then you have Ozzie Trapillo, who is not going to play this season. He's recovering from that ruptured patella tendon. You have a left tackle, projected starter, which was Ozzie Trapillo, like I said. And then now, who do you have over there? Braxton Jones? Jedrick Willis? I mean, who's over there? Kieran Amagaji, or however you pronounce his last name? Are they going to hold down the blind side to Caleb Williams? You remember Caleb Williams took 68 sacks a season ago. Last year, that number, I think, got down to about 30, 35, 38, somewhere in that range, which was better. But why did it get reduced? Because he was running all over the place and then just slinging footballs, right? He wasn't making good decisions. And I'm sorry, any player that gets sacked 68 freaking times is not making good decisions either. So the sack rate reduced because you had a much better offensive line last year that just got all shook up. So now you have Garrett Bradbury, an old vet at the center position, and look, he's good. And then you have the second rounder in Logan Jones that is potentially going to back him up or maybe win a spot. I doubt he's going to win a spot. So at least you got a good, solid center in Bradbury, but how good is he really going to be? The left guard, Joe Tooney, is still solid, right? The right tackle in Darnell Wright earned all-pro caliber. Earned all-pro, I think, last year, the year before, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have, Jonah Jackson. Don't make me laugh, right? Jonah Jackson, come on. The bro breaks a freaking nail and he can't play. That offensive line is going to have more trouble than you think. And if they're having trouble, that means Caleb Williams is going to have more trouble. And Caleb Williams is going to have to learn a third center and hopefully get better this year. Because last year, the rumor is Ben Johnson had to dumb down the offense for Caleb Williams. And then what did you lose in the offense? What players did you lose? Now, I'm not, trying to pick on you or anything, but since we're saying the Lions are going to be 6-11, let's point out all the reasons why I think the Bears could be 6-11. Oh, wait. You lost Caleb Williams' number one outlet in DJ Moore? Oh, that's not good. That's not good at all. And then Drew Dahlman, like I said, he retired. They released Tremaine Edmonds, the linebacker, out of the defense. He was good, not great. Way overpaid. What other players did you lose? What other players did you bring in? Now, you brought in Kobe Bryant. That was a great move. That's the player that I was hoping that Brad Holmes was going to bring in, honestly. Kobe Bryant's a hell of a safety. You brought in Devin Bush. Come on. Devin Bush? How long has Devin Bush been in the league? Let's take a look here. He's played with 3 teams. And this is his 4th team. Since 2022, after finishing out his rookie contract with the Steelers, he went on to the Seahawks for a year, the Browns for 2 years, and now he's with the Bears. His total career out of, what is that? 6, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 7 seasons? He has 524 tackles, 7 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 6 fumble recoveries, 24 pass deflections, 5 interceptions, 2 defensive touchdowns. I mean, they're not terrible stats, but this guy's not a game wrecker by any means. He's not a game wrecker. He's not better than Tremaine Edmonds. He's just cheaper. Neville Gallimore, like I said, the defensive tackle, former Indianapolis Colt, he's not great. He's just cheaper. Oh, then you brought in our old, washed up players. Khalif Raymond. Love Khalif, but he's not that great. He's been banged up. He has a couple of spurt games here or there, a couple of good returns here or there. He was an all-pro a couple of seasons ago, punt returner. But outside of that, he doesn't really do much. Now, could he catch fire in a bottle in Chicago? He could. Doubtful. Very doubtful. You brought in Case Keenum, or you retained Case Keenum. He's a better quarterback than Caleb Williams, and that's not a lie. That's the truth. You retained DeMarco Jackson, the other linebacker, decent. Daniel Hardy, the defensive end, decent. Jedrick Willis, someone that I was thinking that the Lions could also bring in to help secure the offensive line. I mean, he's decent. He's not a starter, but he is someone that you could have brought in as a patchwork offensive lineman to compete for a spot while the Lions were drafting this season, right? You bring him in, you hope that you don't need him, you relegate him to a backup spot. That's Jedrick Willis. Who else did you bring in? Oh, you brought in Jack Sanborn. Right? The linebacker, Jack Sanborn. He's a decent depth linebacker. And he actually can play in the right scheme. But I don't see any upgrades to the offense here. None. If anything, I see the offense getting worse by losing DJ Moore. Now, they're expecting that Odunze and Luther Burden are going to be the players that, that Caleb Williams is going to be able to have a lot of success with. But then when you look at the draft, they brought in Dylan Thieneman, who largely can end up being the best safety in the league within a couple of years. He's a rookie. He's going to go through his rookie pains, but I was really high on Dylan Thieneman. We'll see what happens with Dylan, but I do like that pickup. Like I said, Logan Jones, the backup center, could be decent later. Sam Roush, the tight end. I do like Sam. Underwhelming career, but he can be pretty good. But I think it's funny that Ben Johnson had to go out and find another Sam as a tight end. Ben's just, he's constantly living in the rear view of Detroit. Xavier Thomas, the wide receiver. Malik Muhammad, your 4th round corner. I do like Malik Muhammad. He's got long arms. One of the best conversations I had at the Combine was with Malik Muhammad. But anybody else you drafted, not so hot. You got some middling players in this draft. You got one stud in Dylan Thieneman. I don't see the Bears getting better. I see the Bears getting worse. And they're going to get worse because last year you played a 4th place schedule that was god-awful. And then you had to get lucky in a lot of games to win. This year, you're going up against a 1st place schedule, and unless all these teams fall off the face of the cliff, it's not going to be an easy road. Unlike the Lions going in and winning the NFC North, taking it from every team every year in 2023 and 2024, right? Marching in week 18 to the Viking Stadium and sitting Sam Darnold down and taking that NFC North championship has a much different feeling than sitting on the couch on a Saturday afternoon and the Bears get gifted an NFC North championship. You didn't go out and win it. You didn't have a game-defining moment. It was gifted. And it was only gifted because the Lions lost a couple of games that we shouldn't have. Because the Lions were injured. Because the Lions were going up against a number one schedule, not a fourth place schedule. So good luck. You're going to need a lot of it. But I think that you can totally flip everything else that you wrote, put the Vikings at the bottom. You put the Lions on the top. I think the Packers would be number 2. And the Bears should be number 3. They could be number 4. But I'm not going to be as biased. I think the Bears could finish in 3rd. Absolutely. I think they're better than the Vikings. What about Decker? Hold on. What? Aaron Green says, don't forget to add Decker because that's happening. I don't think it is it? I don't think, like, Decker came out and said that he's never going to play for another team, especially in the NFC North. Did someone say that that's happening? And if they did, I can only imagine where it came from. Yeah, right here, April 5th. Taylor Decker says, not interested in signing with the Bears or the Packers. Here, let me open that real quick. He didn't say not the Vikings, but he eliminated himself from the Bears and the Packers. All right, I don't know if Ace Boogie is still in here or heard my little sermon there, but anyway. All right, let's get into my next topic of the day. What time is it? 10:16? All right, we're doing good. We're doing all right. All right, so the Detroit Lions youth ranking. I hate list season. I really do. I think it's so pointless, but whatever. The Lions just fell from 6th all the way down to 23rd in the under 25 talent, and that number looks uglier than the actual roster, right? Jahmyr Gibbs stands alone as Detroit's qualifying blue chip, while several foundational stars disappeared because they turned 25. But beneath that, at the arbitrary cutoffs, well, sits a real roster building question about recent drafts, or does it, or the rookie contracts and the future depth of this team. So let's separate the misleading age math from the warning that Brad Holmes cannot ignore, or can he? 23rd. It sounds terrible. It really does. Context makes it a lot less terrifying. It doesn't make it any less meaningless. Detroit didn't lose every young star that they were developing. Several simply just had birthdays. They got older, right? Gibbs is the only designated player still under 25 years old that happens to be the best running back in the league. Penei Sewell, Sam Laporta, Kirby Joseph, Jameson Williams, Aiden Hutchinson, and Jack Campbell, well, they still remain young foundational players despite being excluded. Blake Miller's development matters enormously because starting tackles create premium value on rookie contracts. Derek Moore can transform the pipeline by becoming a legitimate pressure threat, but that's about it. Tyleik Williams has to convert interior flash into dependable disruption. Last year, I compared him against every other rookie defensive tackle that was taken in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th through the 7th rounds. And quite honestly, Tyleik Williams was better than 99% of them. Isaac Tesla needs to compete this year. He just didn't have a lot of production last year. The occasional highlight catches were great, but this year can be much different. Rakestraw, well, it's his turn to finally show that he has the pedigree to be drafted in the 2nd round. He needs meaningful opportunity this year. The real issue is that Detroit's core is getting expensive. That happens when you draft stars. It's a good problem. But it also becomes a dangerous one. Without the cheap starters, and cheap just by meaning affordable, right? Without the affordability behind the stars, the question starts to loom whether or not Brad Holmes can actually hold this team together. This is why players like Blake Miller, DJ Moore, Isaac Tesla, Tyleik Williams, Tate Ratledge, Keith Abney, Ennis Rakestraw, they all matter a lot more this year. Every single one of those players mentioned either needs to take a step up compared to what they did in their rookie year or take a large step in to the season here in 2026 as a rookie and show us what they can do. The ranking doesn't just say Detroit lacks talent because that's the furthest thing from the truth. What it says is that fewer foundational players are remaining inside that inexpensive age bracket, if you will. The roster mechanics are simple. Your stars get paid. The younger classes have to replace the value. The age cutoff absolutely punishes Detroit right now. Detroit is getting older. And again, that's not a bad thing. Penei Sewell didn't become old overnight. He just dominated the league since he was a rookie. And neither did Sam Laporta or Aiden Hutchinson or anyone else. But the recent classes still need to show that they're valuable to this team. And both statements can really be true here. The ranking mostly is mathematical noise, right? Or the first warning that Detroit's draft pipeline has cooled off a bit. I don't think so. I think that this championship window that everyone talks about, the Lions still have some of the most elite talent in the league. The long-term question is whether that next wave is affordable and affordable starters. That's the takeaway for me. Ignore the panic, ignore the noise, never ignore the pipeline. I think Brad Holmes has done an excellent job. I think we're just kind of in this waning moment of what's next for the players that were drafted in the last two drafts beyond this year. We'll see what happens. Let me know in the comments below. Are you worried about 24 and 2025's drafts? I'll tell you definitively, I'm not. I could care less about the Terry and Arnold thing. Shit happens, right? You have a good GM that was able to secure multiple positions throughout the draft and the free agency process. This team is deeper and better every single season. And they've proven that. They've never given you a reason not to believe that Brad Holmes isn't doing the right job, because he is. Not many teams can get whacked 21 players in a season and still come out with 15 wins in the number one seed. Now, we didn't do anything with it. It was all for naught. But all of those players, or majority of those players, they're still on this roster. So, you let me know what you guys think in the comments below. All right. Attila says 2025, 9-8, 2026. Let me back up. Did you have more messages than that? I'm trying to read it all together here. 2025, 9-8. And then it says 2026, 1. The addition of Petsy and Kafka as coaches. Yeah, Kafka is such an underrated move. What is this 10-72? What is that? Mays, Miller, and Mahogany meshing with Tate Ratledge and Penei Sewell. Bro, I'm not following what you wrote. Anyway, Attila then says 3, improved pass rush and time to pressure, Derek Moore, DJ Wanham, and a healthy Ali McNeil. 12-5. A healthy Laporta, Branch, and Kirby late in the season and playoffs. 13-4. If they get elite play from one of Keith Abney, Ennis Rakestraw, or Nick Whiteside, Super Bowl. I think it's a little bit. I don't think those 3 players decide a Super Bowl for us at all. I will heavily disagree with that. I think I kind of understand what you're going with there, but it's too chopped up. Trey says Johnny Morton was in charge of the offense, including the O-line, screwed it all up big time. No, it's all right, Attila. I was trying to put it together. Robbie says 2026, 13-4 is our floor. 16-1 is our ceiling. If we beat Buffalo week 2, they'll say it was too early. If we lose, they'll say Detroit can't compete against elite teams narrative. Of course, it happens every year. Every year it seems like week 2 has been our nemesis, man. Week 2 has just been, last year was week 1. But week 2 has haunted us in some seasons. In the first 3 to 4 games, there's no reason to panic. None. You're expected to lose a game you probably shouldn't have. It's early in the season. And so I'm not ever worried. In the first 3 games, I'm really not worried. The 4th game of the year, I need to see something. I need to see a definitive change. Because by the time you get to week 6, if you are hovering with 1 or 2 wins after week 6, the likelihood of you making the playoffs is done. It's over. It's just not going to happen. Matter of fact, I think the Lions were the only team, or one of very few teams, that started that way in 2022. Let me go back to 2022. Man, they almost pulled it off. Shit, I know. I got an appointment today. I got ultrasounds today. $1:00. Anyway, you go back to 2022. The Lions started out with a huge loss, I think, to start the season. Where's the schedule? All right, here we go. Huge loss, man. What a backbreaker this one was. Eagles and Lions. And we almost took them down. Right? We lost by 3 points to open up the season. At home. Against the Eagles. They won a Super Bowl that year, did they not? I'm pretty sure they did. So, had we won that game, we're in the playoffs. It's as simple as that. Had we won that game, we're in the playoffs. The next week, we firm it up, right? Commanders come to Detroit. No, I'm sorry. We go on the road to Washington. We take them down 36-27. And then we lose to the Vikings week 3. We lose to the Seahawks in a nail-biter. That game sucked 48-45 in a shootout. That's the game Goff just got killed on that one play. But there's another game. We win that game, we're in the playoffs. Because the end of the season came down to the Seahawks winning their game, and they're in or losing that game, and all we have to do is go and beat Green Bay, which we did. Eagles and Seahawks game, that was the difference. One of those games was the difference of going to the playoffs to Dan Campbell's second season. Both games are lost by 3 points. So we start off 1-3. 1-3. And then we go to the Patriots and get blanked. 1-5. We go to the Patriots, we get smoked 24-6, 1-6. And then the Dolphins, 1-7. Right? Do I got the numbers right? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 games. Lost to the Dolphins, lost to the Cowboys, lost to the Patriots, lost to the Seahawks, lost to the Vikings, beat the Commanders, lost to the Eagles. We're 1-6. We beat the Packers. We beat the Bears. We beat the Giants. We just barely lost to the Bills. Again, our third game of the year against a playoff team. We lost by 3 points. We win that game, we're in the playoffs. Jaguars, we smoked 40-14. We rebounded to beat the Vikings 34-23. Beat the Jets 20-17. Then we go to that Carolina game, man. It was so cold. Remember that game? It was so cold, as cold as it's ever been in Carolina. Nobody wanted to play in that game. We lost 37-23. Smoked the Bears 41-10. And then we beat the Packers week 18 to send Aaron Rodgers packing out of Green Bay. 3 games decided that season. 1 game is all we needed to make the playoffs in 2022. Point that I was trying to make is the Lions started 1-6. And the probability of any team making the playoffs at 1-6 is next to nothing. And I kept saying during that whole season, that was like the first season I started doing this stuff. But it was on another channel. I was doing a podcast and as a guest on other channels. And it was during that season that I said, it can happen. The Lions can do it. It can happen. We almost did it. What would have been had we made the playoffs that year? No one wanted to touch us. No one wanted to see the defense in that season. All right, I think this is my last topic of the day. And a little NFC North news. So every NFC North team right now, I just realized my lights aren't even on. Every NFC North team, nobody told me, it was a little dark in here. Every NFC North team right now has some sort of a flaw, right, heading into camp. The NFC North may be the league's deepest division, toughest division, but none of these teams really enter camp without some sort of a structural concern. Detroit, obviously they have to solve the cornerback situation. They have to manage the safety recoveries. Chicago, they need another pass rusher, someone to win opposite side of Montez Sweat. Green Bay needs a pass rusher because of Micah Parsons. And then there's Tucker Kraft, who's still recovering from a major knee injury. Minnesota, well, they have a major quarterback problem, and that's creating instability around Justin Jefferson. Chicago's issue can help Detroit because if the Lions can handle blitz communication without a second proven rusher, the Bears need to manufacture pressure and expose coverage behind it, which is what the Lions have been doing for many seasons, right? Unfortunately, though, for the Lions, when we do have the pressure, when we do have the ability to get after the quarterback and we do have a good, defensive line, they get injured. And then when they get injured, it's exactly what has happened will happen again this year for the Bears. If you have to start to manufacture things, it exposes the back end. It exposes the assignment, right? And what the defense is showing. So I see that being a major problem for the Bears. As far as Green Bay's problem, it's more so the availability, right? Micah Parsons changes the protection, and Tucker Kraft changes how Jordan Love attacks the middle of the field. Just like with Sam Laporta out, Tucker Kraft is huge. If either of them miss considerable amount of time, the Packers lose more than just starters. They lose part of their identity, right? The division may be decided by which team finds the best second-level answers and in which stars establish the ceiling right away. And camp is going to decide whether the roster can survive when those stars are limited, doubled, or even unavailable. I think for Detroit, our biggest concern is the secondary. And for Chicago, it's definitely the pass rush threat. And then there's the Max Crosby conversation and discussion. Is he headed to Chicago? And then there's Micah Parsons. His recovery affects everything for Green Bay. And then, of course, without Tucker Kraft, Jordan Love is just not as good of a quarterback. Minnesota, they just need way too much, but we could start with the quarterbacks. Depth is going to decide this race in 26. Which NFC North team has the biggest camp concern? Let me know in the comments below. And then which rival, right, has the biggest weakness to Detroit? I think it's an interesting conversation as to which rival do you feel has the bigger weakness? Is it Chicago's lack of pass rush? Is it Green Bay's Tucker Kraft or Micah Parsons? I'm kind of hedging my bet on Green Bay. And then Minnesota, is it the quarterback situation? Because without a good quarterback, you don't have a Justin Jefferson, right, that's going to produce. One more final thought of the day. There, now we got better light. I still got to fix this camera. I decided to stream in 1080 today. You guys let me know how it looks. Does it look okay? Because I think it looks all right. I couldn't find my Visine this morning. My eyes are a little bit cashed out, man. But I've got like this red tint on my face, and I'm not sunburned. Got to get my lights adjusted. Something on my camera's wrong. Happened the other day. All right. Last but not least, man. I know that y'all are kind of done talking about this situation, but Terry and Arnold. I am definitely going to live stream this if they have it live. But Terry and Arnold's football future has another courtroom date attached to it. And this one lands during training camp. He faces, remember, 8 felony counts, allegedly, right? Denies all the allegations. He's still a free agent, and he's scheduled for an August 13th arraignment. Now, obviously, Detroit's already walked away. The football damage, it's there, right? The cornerback room is a little unsettled, but I think the Lions are going to be okay. I think that for the Lions, moving forward off this process, I don't think that the courtroom decision is going to matter a whole lot to them. I mean, I think to the fans it could, because if he's innocent, then, I think it's going to look bad on the Lions for jumping the gun. But at the same time, I don't, as much as I defend Terry and Arnold, and the whole legal process, it doesn't mean that the Lions want any sort of that drama around them. They don't need it, right? They don't want it going into what is supposed to be a Super Bowl season for them. However, whatever happens, happens. It's a serious legal issue, and I think the Lions made the right choice. But this court date, August 13th, is going to be a date that all of us are probably going to watch, whether you want to admit it or not. I know, like I said, if it's going to be live, I'm going to be right here. I don't think that there's a practice that day. So I'll be right here. And I'll watch it live with y'all. This is where we're going to see the rest or all of the evidence. And I think the defense I think the prosecutor tried to lay out some of that evidence already. And what they had was not overwhelming. And so if this is going to be a trial by peers and not just a judge, I don't see with what they've presented that TA is not going to be innocent. So we'll see what happens. But August 13th is set for arraignment, which I think is kind of crazy because if you think about it, it was just just a couple of weeks ago that all this went down. Well, wasn't it right around July 4th or whatever that all this went down? And so they're going to have their case started within 6 weeks. A full trial within 6 weeks. It doesn't seem like a whole lot of time. But maybe that just kind of tells you how this case might go, because there may not be a whole lot to it. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Still waiting on the NFL to make a judgment. Look, I'm surprised that they haven't by now. I'm really surprised. Really, 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 really surprised that they haven't. And maybe it's because they don't want to get it wrong. And maybe it's also because they don't need to. So let me clarify. Even though I'm surprised that they didn't do anything, because Roger Goodell usually tries to mess with everybody, it seems like, here's the reason why they don't need to make a move right now. The Lions cut him. They released him. And no other team has picked him up. So until that happens, the NFL does not need to step in. And so now, if no team is planning to pick him up, which they don't need to now, because August 13th is the court. I mean, that's when the hearing starts. So if it's all over, but before camp is done, then there's no reason for the NFL to step in. They just need to wait for the decision by the court. And if he's innocent, the NFL really shouldn't do anything. I couldn't imagine the NFL coming in and punishing him for a season, 4 games, 6 games, 2 games, whatever, if he's innocent. So we'll see what happens. But that's why the NFL is not stepping in right now, is because the Lions cut him or released him, and he's not picked up by another team right now, and he's not expected to be picked up by another team right now until this case is done, or if injuries happen to another team that seriously needs another corner. But I just don't see another team picking him up. I think it's all a moot point, and I think he's just going to remain out on bond. He's going to get through his court case, and then whatever happens, happens. But we'll find out later. I'll be right here. Hopefully you'll join me. I think it's going to be a crazy event. Be a lot of people watching. All right, that's it for me today. Appreciate you guys joining each and every day. Remember, help me out on Facebook. I just started Facebook again, and it should be rolling. Damn, my date has probably been off on the ticker today all day. Anyway, all of the handles roll across the bottom, and then during the breaks. Help me out. Go subscribe to my Facebook and the other Twitter, DFJ Sports on Facebook. I need to rebuild what I've lost until Facebook gives me access to my freaking channels again. And could use your help. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Adios.